Morning, Year 2s. Welcome to your maths learning for today. We are going to be building on what we started to do yesterday, telling the time to those 5-minute intervals. Now, yesterday when we introduced this idea and we started to think about it more closely, we were looking only at that minute hand, or mostly at the minute hand. I wonder if you can remind me what the minute hand counts in around the clock face. How many minutes do we move on each time we move around to a new number on the clock face? There might be a clue on the screen. Maybe you could tell somebody at home. Hopefully you've remembered that that minute hand counts in 5s as it moves around the clock face. Can you remember how many minutes belong at the top of the clock where the number 12 is? Hopefully you remembered. This is 0 minutes. When the minute hand, that long hand, points to our 0, a new hour has just begun. We are no minutes past the hour for now. So let's count around this clock face using our 5 times tables to see what each number is worth in minutes. 0 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, count with me, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 55 minutes. So you'll notice I was still counting in 5s. I was still saying 5, 10, 15, 20 around that clock face, but I was adding the measure minutes to the end of the multiples I was saying. 0 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because that is what we are counting in. Because the hour hand does not count in 5s. That just counts in 1s. That's why it's important I say that unit of measure as I go around. If you're still not quite sure on that at the moment and you'd like to practice counting in your 5s around that clock face again, saying minutes after each multiple to remind yourself that it is in fact the minutes we're looking at, you can pause the video and do that before moving on. So that was our warm-up for this morning. Just counting in our 5s around the clock face. Let's do it one more time before we move on. 0 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 55 minutes. Fabulous. And remember, we're saying this many minutes after a certain time. Now, yesterday we were only looking at that minute hand, but you can see today in this in focus task, we actually have both the hands on the clock face. Remind somebody at home which one is the minute hand and which one is the hour hand. Where are these hands pointing? Maybe you could pause the video and talk about that at home first. You might have remembered that one of the tricks I use for remembering the hands is that hour is quite a short word. So that's the short hand. Minute is a longer word than hour, so it's the longer hand. Now I can see here the red is the longest hand, so that must be the minute hand. That minute hand is pointing to the 2, and my hour hand is just past the 7. So I wonder if we could figure out what time this might say, what time this might be. There's a sentence stem here for us to use to try and record the time. The time is how many minutes after what o'clock? It is how many hours and how many minutes? I wonder if you could have a go at trying to fill in that sentence stem before I model how I would do it this morning. You might want to pause the video and then I'll move on. So when looking at this here, I can see that this space is asking me about the minutes. Now, I know my minute hand is this red hand. Oh, I know, easy peasy. It's 2 minutes after something o'clock, isn't it? That minute hand is pointing to the 2. Surely it's just 2 minutes after. Some of you are saying, no, Miss Pope, that really doesn't sound right. Why not? Why is it not 2 minutes after the hour? What was I supposed to do as I counted around this clock face? I was supposed to count in 5s, of course. Oh, so I've got my 0 minutes here. So let's look at this minute hand and stop when I get there to see how many minutes we have. 0, 5, 10. Oh, it must be 10 minutes after something. I'm going to put a 10 on my first line. The time is 10 minutes after something o'clock. I also know that it's 10 minutes because I know that 2 lots of 5 is 10. So I could have used my number facts for the 5 times table to help me. Today, we've got the added challenge. What we just did there is exactly what you were doing yesterday. But today you also have to tell me which o'clock we are currently in. Now remember, when we are working out which hour we are in at the moment, we need to look at the hour hand, that shorthand, and look at which number it is pointing to. The only problem with that hour hand is that it moves gradually throughout the hour, closer and closer to the next number. Some of you will have heard me talk about how this hour hand is just long enough to tickle the toes of each digit as it moves around the clock, and then those digits last for an entire hour. So when we look at the hour hand, we want to think, which number did it just tickle? Now, even though this hour hand is on its way to the number 8, we know the last number it touched, the last number it tickled, was the number 7. So it must be after 7 o'clock. So this clock face is telling us that the time is 10 minutes after 7 o'clock. The minute hand is pointing to the 2. We counted in 5s. 5, 10. The hour hand was pointing just after the 7. That means the 7 was the last number it tickled, so we know it's within the 7th hour. Now, when we record our digital time with just numbers, not as a sentence, remember we have our hours first and our minutes afterwards. How many hours is on this clock face? Which hour are we in, everybody? We are in the 7th hour. And how many minutes was on this clock face? How many minutes are we pointing to? You've got it. There are 10 minutes on this clock. So the time is 10 minutes after 7 o'clock. It is 7:10. That is the time that this clock face says. Let's have a go at reading these times here on the clock faces. You might be feeling confident and want to have a go before I share how to tell the time, and then you can see whether or not you were successful and maybe where you need to learn from your mistakes. Or if you still want to try this one with me alongside me, you can do that. So pause the video if you're confident to have a go and then see afterwards how I do it. Otherwise, work alongside with me and hopefully you'll be feeling a little bit more confident on the next one. So here's my clock face. We've got those same sentences here again. It is how many minutes after which o'clock? That's what we need to think about first. So we're going to start by looking at the minute hand. Minute hand is which hand, the long or the short one? It's the long one, remember, because it's longest word. Minute is a longer word than hour. So you have a look at that clock face for me. Which number is that minute hand pointing to? We can see that it's pointing to the number 2. But we know when the minute hand moves around that clock face, it does not count those big numbers as 1. It counts the digits in 5s. So let's count along. No minutes here. 5, 10. How many minutes is this number showing? It's showing 10 minutes, just like our In Focus task one was. So we now know how many minutes there are in this time. So I'm even going to record my minutes down here as well. We know it's something 10. We know it is 10 minutes after something o'clock. We've looked at the minute hand. Now we need to have a look at the hour hand. Have a look at that hour hand and see if you can notice which number it recently went past. Which was the last digit, the last number on the clock that it went past, the last one it touched? Well, we know that the clock hands move clockwise around the clock face, the direction I'm showing you here. They always go in this direction. So if I know it has been moving this way, I know the last number this touched was the 2. So it must have been 2 o'clock earlier. It's now after 2 o'clock. So this clock face must be showing me 10 minutes after 2 o'clock. The time is 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's 2:10. It's 10 past 2. 10 minutes after 2 o'clock. Here's another one for us to try. Let's break this down, working step by step. Again, if you're feeling confident, have a go before I continue. Pause the video and then you can see me do it afterwards. Number 1, first thing I'm going to do is look at that minute hand. Can you find the minute hand and which number it's pointing to? Well, I know the minute hand is the longest hand, and I can see the longest hand is pointing to the number 10. We know this does not mean 10 minutes. What do we need to count in around that clock face now that we've noticed which number it's on? We need to count in 5s. Some of you might already know what this number needs to be because you might know in your head super quickly what 10 lots of 5 is. But for those of you who are still practicing, I'm going to count in 5s around the clock and you can do it with me. So we're at 0 here. Now let's start counting in 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So it must be 50 minutes on this clock, 50 minutes after something. I'm going to put my minutes number into both of my boxes ready. So number 1, we looked at the minute hand. Number 2, we counted in 5s to find how many minutes we had. And the third thing we did was to record our minutes, to write that number down. Now, what do we need to look at next? We've looked at the minute hand. Where do we look now? Yes, let's look at that hour hand. Well, we've looked at this hand. By process of elimination, we know the short one now must be the hour hand. It looks like it's pointing to the 4, but it hasn't quite got there yet. If I were to get a straight line, which I've got here now, I might pop it in a different colour so you can see it. And if I extend that minute hand to the edge, can you see it hasn't quite tickled the number 4 yet? The number 4, the line is there. It hasn't quite reached there yet. So it's not after 4 o'clock. It's actually after 3 o'clock. This number 3 was the last number the hour hand touched. He is still giggling because it hasn't quite got to the number 4 yet. So even though that hour hand is super close to the 4, it's not quite 4 o'clock. It's nearly 4 o'clock. In fact, it's just 5:10, 10 minutes until 4 o'clock, but we haven't got there yet. So it's actually 50 minutes after 3 o'clock. The time is 3:50. This clock is showing 3 hours and 50 minutes. The reason the hour hand is so close to the 4 is because it's very, very nearly 4 o'clock, but it's not quite that time. Here's one for you. I wonder if everybody could try and have a go at this one on your own, starting with that minute hand first and then the hour hand. And then when you unpause the video, I will show you and go through that process once more. So looking at my minute hand, here it is, long hand pointing to the 7. That's my first step. Now I need to count in 5s to work out how many minutes that is. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. That's 35 minutes. So I know how many minutes are showing on this clock face. I've looked at the minute hand, I've counted in 5s and recorded my time. So now I need to look at that hour hand. If I draw that straight line from the hour hand, I'm going to now think about which number it just went past. Remember, we're moving clockwise round that clock face. So if it's now here, what was the last number it touched? The last number it touched, or the last number it went by, was the number 11. So it must be 35 minutes after 11 o'clock. Now, you might still be finding this challenging, and that is okay. We are really stretching your brains this week. Some of you started to pick this up on Friday. Lots of you started to make more sense of it yesterday. Today, adding in that hour hand makes it even more challenging, but practice is what makes us better at everything. Please be a persevering turtle today and keep on trying. I promise you it will get easier, but this is a super tricky concept, a really hard idea to master and understand, and something that we would like you to be able to have a go at. But if you're finding it tricky, you don't have to panic. Just keep practicing. Find some strategies to make it easier. Maybe take some time out, breathe, come back to it with a fresh pair of eyes. But one thing that always helps us when we are in school is when we use success criteria. And that is where we write each step that we have to do in order. And then in the classroom, when we're finding something tricky, we usually would look back at our success criteria so we could say, first I need to do this. Oh, phew, I've done that bit, I can tick it off. And because you've ticked it off, you now feel super confident, you're ready for the next step. So my challenge to you is, could you have a go at making a success criteria to tell me how you would tell the time on a clock face, recording the minutes and the hours? As I've been going through the last examples, I have been saying to you, number 1, I would do this. I wonder if you could have a go at making a success criteria. So pause the video and have a go at that, and then come back and I will share mine with you. So here is my success criteria for today. I thought it would be a very good idea first to find that minute hand and notice which number it's pointing to. Then, when you've done that and you're feeling good, you found that one, you count in 5s or use your times table number facts for 5s to work out how many minutes it means. Then you write your minutes down. I've broken that process down into 3 steps so you feel like you can be successful 3 times rather than worrying and building up all of that struggle inside you. I'm helping you to get out of that learning pit today. Once you've done that, find the hour hand and then think about which hour we are in, remembering we care about which number it last touched, the last one it pointed to. It may be very close to a new number, but it might not be that hour yet. And then you write it down. So I have attached this to Teams as well for you. You may well have your own, use yours. If you weren't sure you found that tricky, use my success criteria to help you with your learning today. Those are some steps you can take to make this easier. Success criteria are one of the ways and one of the things we can try to help us get out of the learning pit and make our learning more and more manageable. So your worksheet pages for today, you are going to be practicing the things that we have just done there this morning. There's just 2 pages today. There may only be 2 pages, but it is challenging. So I really do take your time with it, do as much as you can, push yourself as much as you can, but remember to use those strategies. So your first one, you're just completing the sentences. You might need help reading some of the sentences, and that's okay. We care more about your maths and your reading in this part. So if the reading is stopping you from understanding what to do, ask an adult or an older sibling to support you. So you need to tell me where the minute hand is pointing and how many minutes it means. Now, which number the hour hand just went past and what hour that means. That's all you have to do for the first page for all of those questions. Where is the minute hand? Where is the hour hand? What do these things mean? Then you are matching the clock face to the times on here. So one of the clock faces will show 35 minutes after 7. So you've got to find the clock that shows that time. Remember, when you're looking, you're going to see which one is showing 35 minutes. Look at that minute hand first, and then look at your hour hands when you're reading your clock faces. Use that success criteria to help you. So those are your 2 challenges for today in your worksheets. So hopefully we're starting to feel a bit more confident. Hopefully, if you're feeling a bit wobbly still and you're still in that learning pit, using the success criteria is going to help you to make your way out. And we still have tomorrow to practice this as well. This is really tricky stuff. In fact, this is like year 3, year 4, year 5 learning. But we are really challenging you because we know some of you are ready for that. And lots of you, many of us, are really starting to understand how to do this. We always like to challenge ourselves in maths. It makes our brains to grow. So give it your best shot, and then we'll see you again tomorrow when we'll look at this that little bit more and practice it for another time. You are all doing a really great job. Remember, celebrate the things you're doing well and keep working on the things you can do better. But don't feel sad if you're finding it tricky. Think about how you can make it easier or better for yourself. I will see you again soon, Yetis. Goodbye.